All right, welcome back to my channel. I'm the FX trade analyst, and this is the weekly analysis on the forex market. Last week, the market was quite an interesting and volatile week, and it was so volatile that some people lost a lot of money. I mean, I lost a lot of money last week, and I think it's just what it is in the market. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But it was a major loss for me last week, and I will show you what happened with the trade I took on gold. Last week there was a lot of volatility, right? And then we saw the trade wars. Trump is still putting tariffs, and that trade tariff, we saw a massive move between Thursday and Friday of last week, and it really that changed a lot of dynamics in the market, right? And coming into the next week, well, we're still looking forward to what's going to happen. I mean, there's a couple of economic news coming out next week, and we're going to see significant distribution in the market, and it's going to be very volatile. So I'm hoping that a lot of corrections is going to happen with what has happened last week, and we look forward to it. So let's jump into the chart and see what's going to happen. If we look at the dollar index last week had broken the trend line, the all-time trend line that has been formed. I mean, previous weeks we've been forecasting that there's going to be a bounce from this trend line, and then we might see a trade that is going to go to the upside. We're hoping that this trade is going to push to the upside, at least get to this area before it begins to push back down. But apparently, it was quite a volatile week, and then we saw a massive break of that trend line, and then we saw this candle come down to test this particular support zone before we saw a massive rejection candle were closed almost into the trend line that was formed. But well, looking into the next week, I think the dollar index is going to continue to be very bullish. I think it's still going to continue to move to the upside, irrespective, because the market is trying to correct all of these imbalances that has been formed in the last week. If I jump down to the lower time frame, say the one daily time frame, you will see these particular two candles, the way it closed below the trend line. See, notice the two particular candles, the way it closed below this trend line, and it was quite huge. And you notice that the market closed, and there was a huge gap that was formed in the market to show how that news triggered the market, and how the market jumped and started to move all the way down. All right. So before the close of the market last week, we saw that the market is trying so hard to close up all the gaps that was created. You can see the bullish candle trying to push all the way back to form a closure for the gaps that is being created. And I'm hoping that this gap is what is going to be closed in the next week before the market begins to do maybe a move to the downside or begins to push to the upside. But if I look at the weekly time frame that we're looking at before, you see that this market has actually tested this area of support, that where this market has been holding for a long time. If we see what has been happening over a period of years now, it's been respecting this trend line and bouncing back and coming back and bouncing back, did a false breakout and continue to push up, kept doing all of that, and then did another false breakout here, and then tested this trend line again and came back to that trend line here, tested it, started to push up, and then last week became very volatile, and we saw a break of that trend line with this candle before this rejection. All right. So say if I jump down to say the 1 hour time frame, and I'm looking at what has happened with this trade, you will notice that into the last week after the break, it seems to have started to do correction to the upside. There seems to be some form of bullish pattern forming, right? You can see it's beginning to make a higher high, lower high, higher high here, made a lower high, lower high, made another higher high. Okay. So what I'm thinking is going to happen is I think it's going to have a slight pullback, maybe to test this area of support, and then come back to close up this gap. All right. If I mark out this gap, you see this area, I'll just give it a mark so we just know the area we're talking about. Notice that there's a huge gap that has formed just right here, right? I'll just push it out and maybe label it with say the fair value gap, so it becomes clear. So I'm thinking that the market is going to push all the way back to come and test this, to come and cover or balance up this market gap that is being created here, right? So there's going to be a bull pull for the dollar index. I'm seeing a continuous move to the upside for the US dollar index. So in the coming week, let's just watch for a bull run on the dollar index that it will come up, and begin to make its way up to the upside. So in the coming week, I'm expecting the dollar index to continue to make a bull run to the upside, and it's going to, of course, affect the rest of the currency pairs as we may see it, okay, in the coming week. If you now look at the Euro USD and see what has happened in the last week as well, you notice that the entire thing affected all the markets. If you notice, you see the two candles, there's a huge bull candle that ran and broke this area of resistance and then went all of up before it had a rejection and then begins to retrace to the downside. Okay, so even this candle, if you notice, it has closed, it pushed below this area of support and then the candle closed above this area of support. But if I push down to say 1 hour time frame and we begin to look at the possibility of a downtrend to begin to form, you'll see that it might likely be the case, seeing that this market has begun to make a bear run, right? It's beginning to push up to the downside. You see it made a lower low here and made a lower high here, and then it's beginning to come down to make another lower low. All right. Of course, this area of support and resistance has been holding, but I think there's going to be a break of this place, and then I think this market is going to continue to push to the downside. I think there's going to be a break of this area of support, and then this market is going to continue to run to the downside. So in the coming week, I'm hoping to see if I can take a trade with the Euro USD on the downside. So I'm hoping to see if I can catch a sell. And if I jump down to say the 15 minutes time frame, what I'm going to be looking forward to is an opportunity for this trade to exactly see if I can break, if it can push down. Okay, if you look guys, I think you can begin to see that some form of a bear flag is beginning to run, right? Some form of a bear flag is beginning to run in this place here. It begin to create some form of a flag pattern here. So I'm looking forward that this trade might not continue to push to the upside. What I'm expecting is this trade is going to continue to go to the downside. And guys, if this trade pushes to the downside and comes back to test this area of resistance, then guys, I'm willing to take a trade to the downside. Of course, the way I used to take my trade is I'll wait for this support to happen. If you notice, I'll just mark out this area. I'll just take out this and then mark out this area. You notice that this area is going to begin to form an area of resistance when this market begins to push to the downside, right? This place is going to form an area of resistance when this market begins to push to the downside. I'll just mark it out. Resistance and support. So I will wait for this market to give me this pattern. If it comes down to break this and then comes to retest this area, of course, I'm willing to take a trade to the downside this way. All right, so I'm going to be placing a trade somewhere around this place. Of course, I love to use fair value gaps to take a trade. I'll find a fair value gap that's been created, put my stop loss maybe above this place, or just put it just above here, because it might not come back to break this if it continues to form a bear flag, a bear run. I'll push and I'll begin to look for a trade to the downside. So guys, in the coming week, Euro USD for me will be a sell side liquidity I'm going to be looking for to take trades on. Okay, and I think this, if I go back to the dollar index, you notice some sort of a pattern at least is beginning to form. If you look here as well, this is the dollar index, you'll notice that the same pattern forming with the Euro USD is forming here as well. You notice that this is looking like a bull flag as well here. And then if you notice that this is the pole, and then it has come to begin to range in this area. So I'm thinking that this range will have a breakout onto the upside in the coming weeks. So I'm seeing some form of a run that will go this way and begin to clean up liquidity to the upside. All right, so that's the trade I'm hoping to take on Euro USD, guys, in the coming week. And if I look at the GBPUSD as well, GBPUSD might as well follow likely trend. Okay, but the difference with the GBPUSD is let's look at the daily time frame, for example. If you look at the daily time frame, you notice that the same liquidity that happened. This is from I think from Wednesday last week. There's a huge break of the support area, right? This market had broken this support area before, but returned and was trading just within this zone. Has been ranging here, but from Wednesday there was a big break of this support area, and then it pushed up and then began to move all the way to the upside. Of course, it had a massive rejection, and then there's a very large long bear candle that is engulfed the two candles of Wednesday and Thursday. So this is a huge significance that there's going to be a bear run on GBPUSD. Okay, so guys, what I'm going to be looking forward to as well in the coming week is a GBPUSD that will break this area of resistance, break this area of support, and then pull all the way down and begin to come to clean all of this liquidity. But before it happens, if I go to say the 15 minutes time frame to look for a possible trade setup in the coming week, what I might be looking forward to for GBPUSD, if I clean up this area, what I'm going to be looking forward to the GBPUSD is a possible trade setup from somewhere around here. If you notice, GBPUSD had left very clean area of liquidities around this range. All right, I'm looking that this range might come to be taken out. Of course, you see all of these places, but I'm not too sure if I can call this a bear run at the moment, a bear flag, at the moment. I'm going to just kindly watch this trade. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kindly watch this trade in the coming week and see if I'm going to take a trade to the upside, because possibility of this trade coming to sweep all of these places, coming to test this area of resistance before it begins to come back, or even pull back a bit, come to test here again before it begins to push all the way down, is a possibility. But of course, guys, I'm going to carefully look out for what is going to happen with the GBPUSD, because this GBPUSD trade is quite tricky. I'm not liking the pattern that is formed already. I'm not too sure I'm going to be looking forward to taking a trade until I see a correction of this pattern, because this pattern that has been formed here looks quite doesn't look quite like a pattern I want to trade in the coming week. But I'm going to be looking out for what is going to happen cleanly, and if I see any sweep, in fact, two situations. If I see a sweep of this liquidity up to this upside and begins to give me the market maker model of downtrend, of course I'll begin to look for a possibility for a down, a sell side. All right, because the overall pattern for the GBPUSD is what I'm seeing with this very long bearish candle that has formed, engulfing all the candles of the last week. What I think is going to happen is we're going to go see a massive retracement and sweeping of especially this liquidity. If you remember previously, we've been hoping that this market is going to come and take out this liquidity we've clearly marked out here, right? So I'm looking that forward in the coming week that this market will still have to push all the way down and come to sweep all of this liquidity before it begins to maybe make another run to the upside. Okay, so guys, that's what I'm looking forward to do with GBPUSD. So I'm not particularly going to show any trade setups I'm going to take. I'm just going to watch the market on GBPUSD to see what's going to happen before I take a possibility of any trade. If you look at the USDJPY, guys, USDJPY has been quite another trade that had massive liquidity in the last week. Of course, there's been some economic news and factors that affected the market last week, but at least it's been respecting this zone. It's been respecting this trend line. If you notice, this trend line has been respected all along. All right, the market had come up to this point. Market has come up to this point and has bounced from this area of support or resistance rather, and then has pushed all the way back. If you notice, there's a huge massive bearish candle that closed on Thursday, before on Friday we began to see a pullback into this zone. All right, so possibility of this trade coming all the way down again, I don't really know. But if we look at this, we look at all time. If I push back to say the weekly time frame, you look at this, there's a trend line that's been respected for over the months now, right? So I'm thinking that because this market has come to test this area, well, it's not touched the trend line, so to speak, but if I adjust this trend line the way I've marked it, maybe I can say that it has touched it, because this other area might just be considered to be a liquidity sweep. All right, this area that's formed here might be considered to be a liquidity sweep. So maybe I would say has touched, because this massive rejection might just continue to push to the upside from what has happened. But I'm going to carefully watch it in the coming week. What I'm going to be doing with the USDJPY is to see if this market is going to break this trend line and begins to push to the upside. Maybe I can catch some trade if I look to the 15 minutes time frame. I can look at it and begin to say, okay, there might be a possibility for a trade, because just like the other currency pairs, I think all the currency pairs are beginning to just range within a particular zone. Maybe this range is going to continue to happen up until about Wednesday when the CPI news comes out. I think it's about Wednesday the CPI news is going to come out. But before then, let's see what's going to happen in the market. Maybe before the market begins to take a massive volatility to either sides of the market. But if I'm going to be looking for any maybe say quick scalps in the market, I'm going to be looking for what is going to happen here, and then I might be saying, okay, you know what, since I'm hoping that this market is going to continue to the upside, I might just look for this market to have just this small minimal retracement to the downside, maybe come to test this area of support. Of course, why do I say that area of support? If I clearly mark out, you see that this support might hold, it's been holding all the while for this place, right? I'll just clearly mark it out this way. You notice that if you notice, it has come to hold in almost three spots. It has held here, right? And then has come here to hold. Okay, I'll just adjust this. I'll adjust this. I'll adjust has come here to hold, then had come here to hold again. Okay, and then I'm possibly thinking that what is going to happen if I see this market pull back to test this area again. So I'm looking forward to what is going to happen just around any of this area of support. So if this market pulls back to test this area, of course I'm willing to take any trade to the upside from this moment. So I'm looking forward to see if it tests it and then bounces off. I'm going to look for a market maker model to begin to look for trades, possibility of a trades to the upside from here. Okay, putting my stop loss just beneath this level. That's what I'm hoping to do with the USDJPY. But of course, overall, if I go down to the 4-hour time frame, the overall is to look at what is going to happen when this trade pushes back to this area of resistance. Of course, that might not even happen in this week. It might not really happen in this coming week. But of course, I like to take trades that are very short. That's the only way to stay safe in the market. I have my strategy, and my strategy is to always look at my support resistance and what happens with the trend lines. Okay, and then I begin to look for possibility of a trade. Now, this trade has actually touched a place, this place of a trend line, and then is beginning to retrace its way back to this place. Of course, if I see what's happening, maybe if I use the Fibonacci tool to just extend this move, I might say that maybe this market will just come back and test any of those zones, say maybe test any of this 0.5 or 618. But even the 0.5 and 618 does not coincide with anything. I can't see any other confluence to support what is going to happen with the Fibonacci extension. But so that's why I might not be possibly looking at what is going to happen within this range. I'll just quick scalp if that market pulls back, like I've just said in that 15-minute time frame chart. If it has any pullback to this area of support, I might just take a quick scalp and monitor the market and be able to take whatever number of pips it gives me, and I'm out of the market. But overall, if you're looking to take a longer trade with the USDJPY, I'll just say you just watch this market and see what happens by the time it pushes up to this area of resistance, and then maybe pulls back and breaks it. Once it breaks it, and wait for a retest, and then you know that this market is beginning to pull the upside, right? And then seeing that the dollar index as well is beginning to make a bull run, it might begin to affect all the other currency pairs with the USD inside, right? And of course, USDJPY might begin to see a massive pullback to the upside in the coming week. So guys, just watch it and watch how you trade with the currency pairs in the coming week. If we look at the gold was the trade that just set me apart and then tore me down and give me a massive drawdown in the last week. Of course, I'll just quickly show you what trade I took last week. Of course, my analysis had been support and resistance. If you notice, if I just mark out this area of support, of course, this area was where I was looking forward to for this market to retrace to in the last week. This area, all right. So this area of support and resistance, just because it had come here to test this area and has pushed back and then broken it. But before even break it, if you watch, apart from what it gave us here, if you watch what has happened here as well, you notice that of course he came here and he formed some sort of consolidation in that place to show that it's a valid area of resistance. All right, you see how he resisted here and he pushed all the way back, came here, did another resistance before he broke it and began to go to the upside. So in the last week, I was clearly watching what's going to happen. Of course, I waited for this market. It was ranging just in this area as of last week, and then there was a massive pullback and it tested this area of support. And when it tested this area of support, I was very excited and I waited for the market. Of course, guys, if you remember how I mentioned I used to trade, I like to wait for fair value gap. So what I did was, if I jumped down to the 15 minutes time frame to show you exactly how I took the trade, what I did was I waited for this market. I waited for this test on this area. So see, I'll mark out the fair value gap I was looking for because he gave us this gap. So I was looking for what is going to happen at this area. Okay, I was looking for what is going to happen at this fair value gap. Sorry. So I carved it out like this. I'll mark this. This became my demand zone as at last week. So it became my demand zone as at last week. So when it made this run, I started to watch the market. Of course, I was waiting for the market to come back to grab liquidity in this area before it begins to go up. So when I saw this hammer on the 15 minutes time frame, when I saw this candle close as a hammer on the 15 minutes time frame, of course I straight this demand zone out. Okay, when this hammer formed, guys, when this hammer formed, I didn't jump into the trade because I felt that it hadn't made a quite a run. I hadn't grabbed all of that. It didn't cover all of the fair value gaps. If you go to say the 5 minutes time frame, guys, I think this is the trade. This is a trade. If you go to the 5 minutes time frame, this market, this fair value gap that was formed, I was waiting for it to come and grab almost all of this because there's a fair value 5 minutes fair value gap that was formed just right in this area, right? If I refine this fair value gap that I've created in this zone, if I refine this fair value gap, guys, I'll just refine this fair value gap. I put this fair value gap just somewhere down in this zone. Of course, I pushed it down. It was this fair value gap that I was looking forward to for a quick grab. Okay. So it was this fair value gap, this demand zone. You see, this fair value gap that was created, this 5 minutes fair value gap. So I waited for this market to come. So it was this trade that I took. It was this trade that I took, guys. Yeah. So immediately this market came down to test this area. It picked up this and then it gave me this bull candle. And this is the trade I took, guys. This was the trade I jumped into somewhere here. So I took this trade and expecting this market to at least push up and give me all of this run. Okay, and I put my stop loss just below this wick of this candle. I put my stop loss just below the wick of this candle somewhere here, somewhere here. And of course, guys, as you can see, the market actually did not pull to the upside. It started to go up and then reversed and took me out of the market, and that was a massive loss for me in the last week. So well, but it is what it is in the market. Sometimes you lose, sometimes you win. Okay, so in the coming week, what I'm looking forward to, if you look at what has happened, gold had come back to sweep liquidity. Of course, the market indices and the market economics affected, the market, the economic news affected the market in the last week. Okay, the trade wars and everything that's been going on. So I'm seeing from what has happened, if you look at this push to the downside, you notice that there are massive rejection candles and bearish candles that is happening. Of course, if you notice this candle that formed into Thursday, when that news from Trump came out, if you notice what has happened, there was big bearish candle that immediately rejected and pulled all the way to the downside, taking all the liquidity with it, and then it began to push all the way to the upside. Of course, guys, this market was not quite favorable for a lot of people. When this candle started to form, I thought it was started to go to the upside, so I was very eager and hoping forward and looking forward to take buys in the market, but market started to push down. So I left the market and started to watch what is going to happen. And after seeing what's happened last week and how it closed, I'm thinking that this market is still going to push down some more. Just look at it, guys. Just look at the rejection and the bearish candles forming. This particular candle has pushed all the way to the upside, grabbing all the liquidity on its way, making its way to the upside, and was rejected all the way back again and closed, and of course formed another huge large bearish candle closing massively on Thursday, and on Friday it looked like some retracement had entered the market. But if you notice, the bullish guys are not quite heavy yet. They're not quite heavy. If I jump down to say the 15 minutes time frame, if I jump down to the 15 minutes time frame, you will notice that it looks like some bullish pattern is trying to form. But of course, guys, we cannot bank on this. I'm thinking that what this market wants to do is to come back and test this area of resistance and maybe begins to push all the way back up again. All right, so guys, I'm not even willing to take any trade on gold until I see a perfect correction of the patterns in the market. So what I'm looking forward to is to see a gold coming to test this area. Once gold tests this area of resistance, once it tests this area of resistance and then begins to give me any pattern that looks like a bearish pattern, guys, of course what I'm looking for trade is bear, sell into the week that is coming. But of course I'm going to be very careful because gold has been very strong. Gold has been on the bull side. Gold has been pushing and going on its all-time high into almost the whole of the entire last month and into this month. Of course, so let's watch it, guys. I'm going to carefully be taking sell sides in the coming week, but I'm watching what is going to happen. If I go to say the daily time frame, the best I can look for is to do sales up until this area. Of course, I will not be looking to take any sales that is going to exceed this area of support. I'll just clearly stretch out this area of support so it becomes very clear. All right, I won't be looking to take anything beyond this area of support. Okay, even if gold is going to push down, maybe that's the highest I see gold pushing to before gold begins to make its way to the upside again. So guys, if you notice, just look at the daily time frame. You see how this massive bearish candle closed heavily on Friday of last week. So guys, just look out for bearish trades into the next week for gold, and that's the pattern I see. All right, if I have to just push out any trade setups, like I said, this is the 5 minutes time frame. If I clearly look at what is happening in the 5 minutes time frame, of course, if you look at here, you might think that there's been some form of some form of a W pattern forming, and it might look like it's going to the upside. But if you notice how the market closed into the last week here, you notice that there's no pattern. It's just the fact there's no volatility. It's just been in one place, just in one place, pushing up and pushing down and stalling in that side. Okay, so guys, I'm thinking that maybe this market will just push to the upside, test this area of support, or even push further up to clean some liquidity that has been formed for people who had gone short with it. Maybe clean all of this and come to this area. Maybe if I look to mark more areas of resistance that it might come to, it might just be yet another place between here. All right, just between here. If I stretch this one out, that might be another place you're going to look forward to. Let me stretch this out, this point, right, and maybe stretch this out to this point. So guys, when you if you're excuse me, if you're looking to take any trades in the coming week on gold, please just look at what happens with these zones that has been clearly marked out. Okay, and these zones are places to look out for and what is going to happen. But mine is, if it comes to this place, test this area, pushes back, I'll look for any possibility for me to take a trade to the downside for gold. All right, guys. I'm hoping that it's going to be a very interesting week into the week commencing 6th. Right into the week commencing 7th. That's Monday tomorrow. I'm hoping it's going to be quite an interesting week ahead. It's going to be volatile. I don't know when. Maybe we'll have to wait for the CPI coming, on other economic news coming. If those news begin to move the market in certain directions that we are not too sure, don't take any trade, guys. It's better to protect your capital and protect your risks than taking trades you're not too sure of. Right now, I'm not too sure of what's going to happen with gold, but I'm going to be carefully looking for better opportunities to sell, maybe sell to a certain support or resistance area before I begin to look for particular direction for gold to take in the coming weeks. All right, so stay safe, guys, and trade carefully. Remember, our challenge is coming very soon. Is starting in the coming week. In the coming week, the challenge I told you about, I'm going to pick, is going to start to run. I'll post all my trade setups and everything you need to know. Stay with us, guys, and like, subscribe, and please remember, turn on notifications to know when we post new analysis for the week. Please trade carefully and manage your risks appropriately. Thank you for watching. Thank you.